A first-round receiver, a perfectly thrown football, not a defender within 10 yards, and the ball hits the ground like it never even had a chance. That moment right there stopped everything at Browns training camp. But here is what every single highlight clip and every rushed take you have seen today is completely missing. That drop was not a one-time thing. It was not a bad day. By multiple independent accounts from reporters standing on that sideline, this has now happened at least 2 or 3 times over the last stretch of practices. Catchable footballs, accurate throws, hitting the turf. And buried underneath that headline is a quarterback competition that just shifted in a direction nobody saw coming. A national NFL voice went on his show and essentially told Cleveland that the money sitting on the books cannot be the reason this decision gets made. And Todd Monken is sitting somewhere tonight already knowing exactly who he is naming as the starter for Saturday, but has not told a single person publicly yet. Before we go anywhere, drop one word in the comments right now. Sanders or Watson? One word. That is all. Tell me where you stand before Monken tells those 2 men tonight what he has already decided. Because this video is going to break down every single detail that matters, and by the time we are done, you will see this entire situation completely differently. Before moving further, we're pushing for 1,000 subscribers here at Gridiron Ground. If you're enjoying our Browns and Shedeur Sanders coverage, hit that subscribe button and be part of the journey. Let's build this community together. Picture this for a moment. Shedeur Sanders takes the snap and settles into the pocket with his feet, already positioned the way every quarterback coach in the NFL dreams about when they are drawing up fundamentals on a whiteboard. His eyes are not locked in on one target. They are moving through the progression the way a veteran reads a defense, scanning left, identifying the coverage rotation, feeling where the window is starting to open before it fully develops. His internal clock is ticking cleanly. There is no panic, no happy feet, no drift under pressure forcing him into an unnatural throwing platform. He finds the window, he delivers the football. The ball arrives to Jerry Jeudy exactly where it needs to be, not a yard outside his frame, not behind him, not low where he has to dig it out of the turf awkwardly. It arrives in stride, catchable, clean, in the kind of spot that every receiver in professional football spends their entire career working toward in practice. A ball that asks almost nothing of them physically and simply requires them to finish. Both of Jeudy's hands were available. No cornerback was draped across his body, forcing him into a desperate one-handed adjustment at the last second. No safety was crashing down from the deep half of the field, creating a collision situation at the catch point that would make any reasonable person understand why the football might have come loose. There was nothing complicated about this moment. Nothing that required extraordinary athleticism or elite concentration, beyond what any first-round receiver should be bringing to every single snap of every single practice. And the football hit the ground. Multiple reporters who were physically standing on that sideline at Berea confirmed exactly what you just read. This was not a case of the ball arriving in a tough spot and Jeudy almost making it work. This was a clean drop on an accurate throw with no external complicating factors, and it happened right in front of everyone watching. Now here is where it stops being a one-day story and starts being something the Cleveland Browns organization genuinely needs to address. This was not the first time, not even close to the first time during this specific stretch of camp. Several independent voices covering this team every single day have noted that this marked at least the second or third instance during these recent practices where a perfectly catchable football intended for Jeudy ended up on the turf, instead of going into the stat column as a completed pass and a touchdown. That is a pattern, not a narrative someone manufactured to generate engagement. A documented, observable, consistent pattern of accurate footballs dying on the ground at the hands of a player who was selected in the first round of the NFL draft,
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Specifically, because of his ability to make these catches. Here at Gridiron Ground, we are not going to dress this up as something sinister or build some dramatic sabotage theory around it just because the clicks would be easy to grab. There is zero evidence that Jeudy is doing anything other than going through a frustrating and very real stretch of concentration issues at the catch point. But there is also no honest way to sit here and tell you this does not matter, because it absolutely does. What makes this particular moment genuinely maddening for anyone following this competition closely is the context surrounding it. Sanders had been building toward exactly this kind of moment throughout camp. The anticipation, the placement, the timing through his progressions, all of it was clicking. And instead of walking off the field with a clean 2-touchdown day on his resume, he watched a football roll on the grass knowing with complete certainty that he did everything right on his end. The frustration is not manufactured, it is legitimate, and what came next beneath the surface of this practice tells a much larger story than one drop ever could. Now that you have the full picture of what that drop actually meant in context, let me walk you through everything else that happened across day 13 of Browns training camp. Because the Jeudy moment absorbed every bit of oxygen in the room, and the majority of people covering this story completely missed what both quarterbacks actually built across the entire session. Shedeur Sanders finished day 13 of 21, passing with 1 touchdown credited on the day. Now do something important with that number. Remove the touchdown that Jeudy let hit the ground. Take that completion off the board entirely. What you are left with is a quarterback who should have had 2 touchdowns on the day with a completion rate that reflects genuine command of this offense from the opening snap to the final whistle. He was not scattering the ball around the field hoping something connected. He was not forcing throws into coverage because his first read was not there. He was processing the defense, going through his progressions with discipline, identifying the right target at the right moment, and delivering the football with the kind of consistency that has become almost routine for him at this point in camp. 13 completions on 21 attempts tells you volume. It tells you this coaching staff is comfortable letting Sanders operate with a full menu of options and a real workload. And the fact that his only touchdown on paper should have been 2 reflects a receiver problem, not a quarterback problem. Deshaun Watson finished the day 12 of 17 passing with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Read that line and you will understand immediately why this competition refuses to be simple. A 70% completion rate, no turnovers, no moments where the coaching staff had to cover their eyes or second guess whether their veteran quarterback understands what he is looking at defensively. By any clean metric, that is a professionally managed.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Football day. And here is where the honest and complicated part of this analysis lives. We would be doing a disservice to this competition if we only highlighted Watson's rough practices from earlier in camp without giving fair acknowledgement to the cleaner ones when they show up. He earned a clean grade today in terms of protecting the football and operating within the offense efficiently. That is real, and it deserves to be said clearly. But 17 total attempts against 21 for Sanders is a gap that carries meaning beyond just the raw numbers. Smaller sample sizes naturally limit the conclusions you can draw. When one quarterback is consistently receiving more reps, more opportunities, and more chances to build momentum and make things happen across the course of a practice, that distribution of workload is itself a signal. Coaching staffs do not accidentally hand one quarterback more opportunities unless they are specifically interested in seeing what he can do with them. Dillon Gabriel went 4 of 5 in limited action. Clean enough. Handled his reps without any glaring errors. But a 4-attempt sample does not give you nearly enough to draw conclusions in either direction about where he stands in this evaluation. He remains in the conversation on the fringes, which is all you can say honestly with that level of volume. Then there is Taquin Green, and the growing silence around his usage has started to become its own kind of statement whether anyone is saying it out loud or not. He is still not seeing first-team reps. Day after day, practice after practice, the top of this depth chart sorts itself out between Sanders and Watson, while Green remains on the outside of that conversation looking in. Nobody is generating major headlines about it because the two names at the top are consuming all available attention. But this deep into training camp, the absence of meaningful first-team reps for Green strongly suggests the coaching staff has already narrowed this evaluation down to a two-man race, regardless of whatever public language they use to keep things open. The cumulative picture across all 13 practices now reveals one of the most genuinely fascinating threads of this entire camp. Some days Watson looks more polished. Some days Sanders looks more dynamic and unpredictable. But across the full body of work, one quarterback keeps producing moments that linger in memory long after the session wraps up. The other keeps turning in days that are clean, competent, and almost immediately forgettable. That distinction matters enormously. And the men who will ultimately make this decision understand it better than anyone watching from the outside. And speaking of people watching from the outside, one voice just entered this conversation in a way that changed the entire national temperature around this quarterback battle. Here at Gridiron Ground, we track what real NFL voices are saying, not just what social media amplifies. And what Rich Eisen said recently on his own show did not just add fuel to this debate. It fundamentally elevated the entire conversation from a local Cleveland storyline into a full-blown national reckoning. Eisen is not a blogger speculating from a basement somewhere. He is not a random fan account firing off hot takes designed purely to generate retweets. He is a nationally respected NFL voice with a platform that reaches millions of football fans across this country, and he carries no obvious rooting interest in Cleveland that would explain away his comments as homer bias. When someone at that level weighs in on a specific quarterback competition in a specific market, people across the league pay attention. His point was direct, and he did not wrap it in the kind of diplomatic coach speak that usually softens these conversations when they happen on national television. He said Todd Monken cannot realistically look at his own locker room and communicate to those players that a different quarterback is starting if the people inside that building, the men putting on pads every single day and watching both quarterbacks operate from just a few feet away, genuinely believe Sanders has outplayed and outcompeted Watson across the majority of this training camp. Sit with that for a moment before moving past it, because what Eisen was actually saying goes much deeper than a simple performance evaluation. He was talking about the fundamental credibility of a coaching staff in the eyes of the players they are asking to execute a game plan every Sunday. If the men in that locker room can see the answer clearly with their own eyes, and the people making decisions appear to be looking somewhere other than the football field to find their justification, that creates a problem that no team meeting or motivational speech can fully repair.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Players are not naive. They observe. They discuss. They form opinions about who is earning it and who is leaning on a reputation that may no longer reflect current reality. Eisen went further. He drew a direct comparison to what happened with Russell Wilson during his time in Denver, and this is where the parallel becomes genuinely uncomfortable for anyone who wants to argue that contracts should determine starting lineups. Wilson was a franchise quarterback. He carried a Hall of Fame resume. His guaranteed money represented a number that would make any accountant in any front office in professional sports break into a cold sweat when confronted with the possibility of not getting a return on that investment. And Denver still moved on from him completely because the performance on the field did not justify the financial commitment on paper. That comparison is not subtle, and Eisen was not being coy about the parallel he was drawing to Cleveland's current situation. If the Denver Broncos could stare directly at Russell Wilson's contract, acknowledge the brutal financial reality of absorbing that hit, and still make the football decision to go in a different direction because the evidence demanded it, then the Cleveland Browns can absolutely make that same kind of decision with Deshaun Watson if what is happening between those practice lines points clearly enough towards Sanders being the better option right now. There is also a psychological reality to locker room dynamics that outsiders consistently underestimate when these conversations happen publicly. Players talk. They study film together in those meeting rooms. They see who is preparing at the highest level, who is making plays when the reps arrive, and who is operating on institutional credibility rather than current evidence. If the majority of that roster believes one quarterback has been better throughout this camp, and the coaching staff makes a different choice for reasons that feel financial rather than football-driven, the fracture that creates in the foundation of trust between decision-makers and the men they are asking to go to war on Sundays is not a small thing. It is the kind of crack that can quietly undermine an entire season before the first real game ever kicks off. Eisen understands that dynamic. His willingness.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
To say it plainly on a national platform, without hedging or softening the edges, gives this conversation a weight and a seriousness it simply did not carry even a week ago. If this is the kind of analysis you have been looking for, the kind that goes deeper than the surface-level hot take and actually unpacks what is really happening inside this competition, then you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now and make Gridiron Ground part of how you follow this team. Because what comes next in this receiver room story has been building quietly under the radar for days. Everyone is so completely locked onto the Jeudy drops that a genuinely exciting and important story developing across the rest of this receiver room has been almost entirely ignored by the people covering this team. And that might be the single most underreported storyline to come out of this entire training camp stretch. Start with Isaiah Bond, because this young receiver has been consistently turning heads throughout camp in a way that deserves far more attention than he has been getting. And what he showed during day 13 was not some random one-off flash of athletic ability that looks good in a clip, but does not reflect anything real or sustainable. The connection developing between Sanders and Bond right now has rhythm to it. It has timing. It has a layer of trust built into it that looks like something which has been developing across months of work, rather than just a couple of weeks of training camp reps. There was a specific moment during practice today that illustrates exactly what this connection has become. Sanders put a ball in a spot that demanded Bond lay out completely, full extension, every inch of his body parallel to the ground. A diving catch in a situation where most receivers would have either pulled up short or gotten close without finishing. Bond made the play, and the reason that matters beyond just the athleticism involved is what it reveals about belief. Bond believed that ball was going to be placed where he needed it to be. He trusted the throw enough to sacrifice his body for it without hesitating. That kind of confidence between a quarterback and a receiver at this level of the game is not manufactured in a film room. It is earned one rep at a time, one accurate throw at a time, one moment of being right there when the ball arrives at a time. And it is showing up consistently now between these two players in a way that the entire organization should be paying close attention to. In the spirit of complete honesty, Watson also connected with Bond on a clean, well-timed throw today. Good placement, proper timing, a ball that demonstrated he can work effectively with this receiving group when the protection gives him a clean pocket and the reads are presenting themselves clearly. That is worth saying directly because this breakdown serves no one if it only acknowledges the moments that point in one direction. Then there is Casey Washington. What he has been doing throughout this camp is not a story about a practice squad bubble player hanging on by luck and athleticism. This is a receiver who has been finding soft spots in zone coverages with a consistency that signals real football intelligence underneath the athletic ability. He is not just running routes and hoping to stumble into open space. He is reading coverages before the snap, settling into windows at exactly the right depth within the route concept, and then picking up additional yardage after the catch with a physicality that makes him genuinely difficult to bring down in open field situations. That combination of pre-snap processing and post-catch toughness is rarer than most people realize at any level of football, and it is showing up in his work with Sanders repeatedly. The chemistry between Washington and Sanders has been building steadily, not in one dramatic practice that everyone noticed, but rep after rep over multiple sessions, to the point where it is starting to look like a connection that could generate real, consistent production once the games begin to count for something in the standings. Beyond those two, this receiver room has been winning contested catches against top-level cornerback competition in practice on a regular basis. Guys are getting physical at the catch point, fighting through contact at the moment of highest difficulty, and coming down with footballs in situations where the defensive back has position, leverage, and every reason to believe he is about to make a play on the ball instead. That kind of aggressive mentality at the receiver position changes the entire mathematical equation of a passing offense, because it means the quarterback does not have to deliver a perfect ball on every single throw. He needs to be close enough and accurate enough, and the receivers will do the rest of the work. Even with the very real and very public Jeudy situation hanging over this group, the overall depth and talent level of this receiver room is legitimately exciting for this offense. That depth matters enormously for whoever wins this quarterback competition, because it means there are multiple viable options on every snap, rather than a passing game dependent on one or two specific players to carry the entire production load. But what happened in the 2-minute drill today revealed something about Sanders that no stat line can fully capture, and it might be the single most important detail from the entire Day 13 session. Both quarterbacks ran 2-minute drill scenarios today. Both started from their own 21-yard line. Both had under a minute on the clock and a field to cover, and both ultimately drove their respective units down the field for field goals, written on paper in a box score format that looks completely identical. Two quarterbacks, same scenario, same outcome. But what lived inside those drives tells a completely different story about how each man operates when the margin for error shrinks down to almost nothing, and there is no room left to recover from a mistake. Sanders was working through a practice day that multiple reporters on the sideline described openly as flat and lacking any kind of competitive energy. These days happen in training camp. They are not unusual. When you are asking professional athletes to compete at maximum intensity through weeks of sessions without the adrenaline of a real game environment to pull from, the energy in a given practice can drop significantly from the standard everyone expects. In those moments, it becomes genuinely easy for a quarterback to treat a 2-minute drill as just another rep to get through rather than a game-deciding situation that demands everything he has. Sanders treated it like the latter. On a 3rd down conversion during that final drive, with the entire scenario hanging in the balance and an incomplete pass meaning the drill ends without the finish he needed, he launched a ball downfield toward Isaiah Bond. And here is the part that matters beyond the raw result. The throw visibly wobbled in the air. It did not come off his hand with a clean, tight spiral, the way a textbook deep ball is supposed to look on film. For a split second as that football traveled through the air, every person watching probably assumed it was falling incomplete. Bond laid out completely, full extension, dive, and secured the football to set up the field goal that gave Sanders the finish. Now sit with the actual significance of that moment rather than just the highlight version of it. That throw happened at the lowest energy point of a practice day, where the motivation to elevate and compete at the top level was at its absolute minimum. Sanders still found the moment. He still delivered something that required his receiver to believe in him enough to lay his body on the ground for it. That is not a coincidence, and it is not luck. That is a specific mental wiring that allows certain quarterbacks to generate their best when the situation demands it most, regardless of what the environment around them feels like or how flat the energy has become. Important context deserves to be added here clearly, though. The Browns' defense without Myles Garrett is a genuinely different animal than what it was last season, and that matters for evaluating everything these quarterbacks are doing in practice. Garrett was the kind of singular force who could erase an entire side of the offensive line from the moment he lined up across from a tackle. His ability to collapse the pocket from one edge alone changed how every offensive coordinator in this league was forced to construct their game plans against Cleveland. That presence is gone after the trade, and without it, the pass rush pressure these quarterbacks are seeing from their own defense during camp does not fully replicate the level of challenge they will face against a live opponent with no familiarity with their tendencies. That context does not diminish what Sanders accomplished, but it does mean the evaluation heading into Saturday needs to carry appropriate temper. Chicago brings entirely different problems. Watson's 2-minute drive was efficient, controlled. He moved the offense without making the kind of mistake that poisons a late-game drive and costs a team the football when everything is on the line. That kind of steady management has real value in professional football, and the credit belongs where it belongs. But steady management and electric in a defining moment are two different things. And the gap between those two qualities is exactly what this entire quarterback competition has been about since day one of camp. And what Todd Monken said publicly today just changed the entire framing of everything happening around this competition. Todd Monken dropped a piece of information publicly today that changes the way you should be reading everything happening around this quarterback battle right now. He confirmed that the decision has already been made inside his head. He already knows who is starting against the Chicago Bears on Saturday. The evaluation in his mind has reached the point where he has gathered enough information across 13 consecutive practices to make a call with real conviction behind it. But he is not releasing that information to the media. He is not announcing it at a press conference with cameras rolling and microphones pointed in his direction. His plan is to walk into a team meeting tonight and tell both quarterbacks directly, face to face, in a closed room, before any of it becomes public content for the rest of the football world to pick apart and analyze. Think about the psychology of that decision for a moment beyond just the logistical details of when and how the announcement happens. Monken is a head coach who already has his answer. He could have released a name to the media this afternoon and generated a massive wave of coverage for his organization heading into a preseason weekend. Instead, he chose to deliver the news privately, man to man, with both players in the room before it ever leaks out. That tells you something meaningful about the kind of culture he is actively trying to construct in that locker room. Respect delivered directly. Accountability communicated face-to-face rather than through a third-party announcement or a convenient media leak that strips the dignity out of the process for the man receiving difficult news. That is the kind of leadership detail that does not show up in a box score or a depth chart update, but absolutely shapes the culture of a franchise over the course of a season. The structural framework for these two upcoming preseason games is worth laying out clearly one final time because it is the most important evaluation context for everything that happens between now and when this depth chart gets set for real. Whoever Monken names tonight as the starter against Chicago plays at minimum the entire first half. The other quarterback enters in the third quarter with a clean opportunity to make his own statement under live game conditions. The following week, when Buffalo visits Cleveland, that entire order flips. Both men get a full half of real football in each contest. Both men face a simulated 2-minute drill situation with the outcome actually mattering. Both men deal with the pressure of a live broadcast where there are no do-overs and no practice reps available to cushion a mistake. For Sanders specifically, Saturday needs to answer one critical question that 13 practices against his own defense simply cannot resolve. Can the traits that have defined his camp throughout, the anticipation throws, the situational discipline, the growing chemistry with Bond and Washington, and the broader receiver room, survive genuine contact with an unfamiliar defensive scheme designed specifically to disrupt him? Opposing defensive coordinators spend real time studying tendency film. They identify patterns. They construct pressure packages aimed at the specific decision, making habits a young quarterback has built up during camp. That is an entirely different challenge than reading your own team's coverage rotations day after day. For Watson, Saturday needs to answer whether the clean, efficient stretches like today can hold their form under genuine, unscripted pressure from a pass rush, with no incentive to be careful. Injury updates worth tracking heading into this weekend include Tyson Campbell missing another practice session, Ethan Posick not on the field at all, and both Carson Schwenk and Parker Brailton dealing with issues significant enough to make their availability against Chicago unlikely. Those absences affect the quality of competition on both sides of the ball and change how we should calibrate our evaluation of whatever happens under the lights this weekend. But before Saturday arrives, one more conversation absolutely needs to happen, and it is about the player whose name has been generating the most heat all day for exactly the wrong reasons. Here at Gridiron Ground, we save this conversation for near the end deliberately, because you needed the full context of everything else that happened today before circling back to the situation generating the most emotional reaction across the fan base and the media covering this team. Without that context, the Jeudy conversation becomes either unfair condemnation or convenient dismissal. With it, you can actually evaluate what is happening accurately. Jerry Jeudy is a first-round talent. That is not a statement of charity or an attempt to soften a difficult conversation with empty praise. It is an honest assessment of what his skill set actually looks like when he is operating at his best. His route running technique at the professional level is genuinely polished. The way he works off the line of scrimmage against press coverage, using his footwork and his leverage to manipulate a defensive back's hip placement and create separation at the top of his release, reflects a level of technical sophistication that most receivers never fully develop regardless of how much natural athletic ability they bring to the position. Multiple teams in this league considered him a high-value acquisition, specifically because of those traits, and none of them were wrong to see the talent clearly. But here is the honest, uncomfortable reality that no amount of route running sophistication can paper over right now. None of that matters if the football is not finishing in his hands when it arrives. And across this stretch of practice, the pattern has been clear enough that it demands to be discussed directly without retreating behind the talent evaluation as a shield. The drops that have been occurring are not happening on poorly thrown footballs that force Jeudy into difficult last-second body adjustments with defenders draped across him. They are happening on accurate passes delivered out of clean pockets with proper timing and proper placement. When a quarterback does his job correctly from the protection standpoint, executes the read through his progressions, and delivers the ball where it needs to be, and the receiver still cannot finish the catch, the issue lives specifically and exclusively at the catch point. There is no external factor available to explain it away, no bad protection to point toward, no coverage scheme that complicated the catch window. It is a concentration and finishing problem. And it needs to get corrected before real games begin with real consequences in the standings. What makes this particularly significant heading into the rest of camp and these preseason evaluations is the competitive depth of this receiver room. Bond is making plays. Washington is creating real separation and picking up yards after contact. Other receivers throughout this group are winning contested catches against good corners in practice situations that genuinely challenge them. The opportunities in this passing offense will not sit idle waiting for Jeudy to find his hands. In professional football, targets migrate toward the players who are producing. That is not a punishment or a political decision by a coaching staff. It is simply how a functioning offense operates when it has real depth and a quarterback who can identify which connections are working and which ones are not. The difference between a rough patch and a genuine long-term concern comes down entirely to response. Does the concentration sharpen in the next practice? Does the next contested opportunity in a key moment get finished cleanly? Does he show up under the lights on Saturday against Chicago and remind everyone watching why he was considered one of the most complete route runners in his draft class? Those answers are available soon, and the coaching staff will be watching with full attention when they arrive. If you have been part of the Gridiron Ground family throughout this camp coverage, you already know we do not manufacture drama here, and we do not ignore real problems just because the talent evaluation makes the conversation uncomfortable. The Jeudy situation is a real problem right now. It deserves honest attention, and it deserves a fair opportunity to be corrected before anyone draws a permanent conclusion about what it means for his role in this offense going forward. Now there is one more layer of this entire evaluation that almost never gets discussed in these daily breakdowns. And it might actually be the most important structural factor underneath everything else we have been analyzing. Every conversation about this quarterback competition focuses almost exclusively on the quarterbacks themselves. The throws, the reads, the completion percentages, the clutch moments, and all of those things matter enormously. But sitting underneath all of it, largely invisible to the broader conversation, is the factor that directly enables or destroys everything a quarterback is trying to accomplish on every single snap: the offensive line. From what was described across day 13, the pocket integrity in front of Sanders held up reasonably well across the majority of his reps. That extra half-second of clean protection, that difference between a quarterback operating from a stable platform versus a compromised one, is not a small thing. It is often the entire difference between a quarterback looking like a competent decision maker and looking like someone who is still learning to process at this level. A clean pocket allows full progressions. It allows the eyes to finish the complete read cycle rather than bailing out early because the presence of an unblocked defender is forcing a rushed decision with compromised mechanics and a throwing platform that no quarterback in history would choose voluntarily. When Sanders had that protection holding up today, the results reflected it. Accurate placement, proper timing, balls arriving at the right spots in the right windows on schedule. And when Jeudy still could not finish a catch under those conditions, it isolated the problem with complete clarity. The protection did its job. The quarterback did his job. The failure point was sitting specifically at the catch point with the receiver. There is no ambiguity available in that sequence. The film will confirm exactly what every reporter on that sideline described. On Watson's side, the protection question operates differently and matters in a distinct way. His history of holding the ball too long and absorbing unnecessary sacks is documented across multiple seasons of film that every defensive coordinator in this league has studied. If the pocket was reasonably clean today and he still only attempted 17 passes, the explanation for that lower volume is not obviously protection-related. It may reflect something about processing speed, about the willingness to pull the trigger on throws that are available but require anticipating the route completion, rather than waiting for full confirmation that the receiver is open before releasing the football. That distinction between anticipation throwing and confirmation throwing is subtle enough that casual observers watching a highlight clip would never notice it. but it is one of the most revealing indicators of a quarterback's ceiling in a modern NFL passing offense. Anticipation throws require a quarterback to trust the route concept, trust the receiver to complete the release on schedule, and trust his own ability to put the ball in the right place before the window fully opens. Confirmation throws weight for visual proof that the receiver is open, which often means the window is already starting to close by the time the ball leaves the hand. Sanders has been throwing with anticipation throughout this camp. Consistently, the ball arrives where it needs to be because he trusted the concept and delivered it on time. Watson has historically operated as a confirmation thrower. Both approaches have produced successful quarterbacks in this league at various points in history, but one of them tends to generate more explosive chunk plays and more vertical yardage in the passing game. And this coaching staff has watched both styles play out side by side across 13 consecutive practices with full attention. The Chicago evaluation will bring the offensive line factor into an entirely new dimension of scrutiny. Their defensive front does not know these quarterbacks. They have not spent 13 days developing a familiarity with the internal clocks and pocket movement tendencies of Sanders and Watson, the way the Browns' defensive players inevitably have through daily repetition. New rush angles, new timing on stunts and line games. Different levels of physicality at the point of attack coming from players with real professional motivation and no reason to ease up. How the offensive line holds up against that unfamiliar pressure will directly determine how much time each quarterback actually has to operate. And how each quarterback handles pressure that is genuinely new to him will tell the coaching staff more about ceiling and readiness in one half of real football than an entire week of controlled practice reps ever realistically could. Everything is connected. The line enables the quarterback enables the receiver either finishes or he does not, and the coaching staff evaluates the entire chain honestly. 13 practices of data are about to meet their first real examination, and the results are going to matter far more than any single stat line from any single day at Berea. Here is exactly where everything stands as this team packs up and heads toward Chicago, and the first real lights this quarterback competition has faced since camp began. Sanders closed out a flat, low-energy practice day with exactly the kind of clutch moment that has become the defining signature of his camp. A wobbling deep ball to a diving Isaiah Bond when the energy around him was at its lowest point, turned into the finish he needed when it mattered most. 13 completions, a touchdown stolen from the stat sheet by a drop that had nothing to do with the quality of the throw, and a 2-minute drive finished with competitive fire that cannot be coached into someone who does not already carry it. Watson delivered a professionally managed day. Clean, efficient, no turnovers, no dramatic mistakes, credit where it belongs. But professional and efficient has a ceiling, and the gap between that ceiling and what Sanders has been producing in key moments is the central story of this entire training camp. The receiver room showed both its tremendous upside and its most glaring concern in the same session. Bond and Washington are building into something real. The depth of this group gives whoever wins the starting job multiple genuine options on every snap. And Jeudy needs to respond quickly, because this passing offense will not wait indefinitely for a receiver to rediscover his hands when alternatives are actively making plays all around him. Rich Eisen told the country what Browns fans have been saying for weeks. Money does not start quarterbacks. Performance does. And Todd Monken is sitting in a room tonight delivering a decision to two men that could reshape the trajectory of this entire franchise, heading into a season where expectations and patience have both been tested far beyond what any fan base should reasonably be asked to absorb. Saturday answers real questions. One word in the comments: Sanders or Watson. Tell me who you think Monken named tonight before this gets confirmed publicly. This is Gridiron Ground. We break it down honestly and we let the football speak for itself. Saturday night, it speaks for real. Every single snap gets broken down right here. See you in Chicago.